This is supposed to be an after-dinner speech, so by a show of hands, who's had dinner? Okay. It fits well. I could probably sit down because I've spoken to you and it's after dinner. But that's not what we're here to talk about. How many people here have ever been told that you couldn't do something or that you shouldn't do something that you really wanted to do? Just raise your hands. Anybody? Did you ever find yourself in a position where maybe even the culture, the whole society, seemed to be working against you, and they didn't believe that you could or should do what you felt impassioned as your purpose, as your goal to do? Ahead of her time is about one individual, but it's about almost all of us. The thought came to me to put this presentation together as an homage for what Charlotte did several weeks ago and what Sarah did several weeks ago when they were speaking about the plight of women and the fear and the risks it takes to go out in the world and to try something new. And I knew of such a woman. Her name was Evelyn Sperling. She was born in 1907. That was probably before most of us. That was over 100 years ago. In 1907, women didn't have the vote. They didn't get the vote until August of 1920. The expectation was that women might go through high school, get some education, and then they would move into their real profession, which was to get married, have children, and take care of the home. That is what the culture in our society wanted us. How many people here share that belief? That is what women should be doing in our world. Evelyn thought there might be something more as well. I think there was a lot of women that were pushing for the rights of women, the ability to be spoken, to have a voice in our society, and to do more than just stay at home. She was the fifth born of immigrant parents. Her father was a Jewish man from Poland who left home when he was 11 years old, went to Great Britain, became a British citizen, worked in Britain, immigrated to Canada, worked in Canada, and as he was a young man on one of his trips down into the United States, he went to New York and he met a young woman named Celia, and he fell in love. He went back to Canada and found a way of working his way back into this country. Now, he had some really interesting talents. He was a creative man. He didn't have an education, but he worked in the garment industry, and he was known as a cutter. Does anybody know what a cutter is in the garment industry? It's somebody who cuts out the pattern in fabric. And if you are good at it, you make the most of the fabric that's given to you. You can cut out the most pieces and parts of their garment. And he was very good at it. I'm not sure whether the father influenced the daughter, but she was born in Brooklyn, New York, and one of her older brothers developed asthma, and the family moved to Denver, Colorado, which was a cure for asthma in that day and age. She was very successful in high school. She liked theater arts. She liked a lot of things. She was very interesting. She began to be a storyteller. And right before her graduation, and she was going to be the valedictorian of her class, they moved back to New York, and she missed out on that. She thought that there would be a position for herself in the fashion industry. She got a job. Her first job was at a company called Arnold Constable. You may not have heard of that because they're not in business, but they had been in business for a very long time and were in business about 150 years. And she worked her way up. Her first success was that she was the first woman who was 21 years old to become a buyer in the whole country. A buyer is somebody who has a lot of responsibility for selecting ready-to-wear clothes, buying them, getting them into the stores so they can be sold. And at 21, she had made a mark. To move up a little bit further, she took a job in Washington, D.C., where she lived for 5 or 6 years. She worked for the Hecht Company. And again, she worked very, very hard. It is not an easy profession on anyone, but as a single woman, I was told that she cried herself to sleep many nights. I think we can all relate to that too. Life isn't always easy. If you really want something, you have to work hard at it. But she was a very independent sort. We're moving up into the 1930s. She did another thing that single women shouldn't do. She went traveling. She traveled the world. One of her favorite things was to go on cruise ships. And because she was a really good storyteller, people would gather around her. She would hold their attention, and she got to go to some very interesting places. Cuba, South America. She went through the Panama Canal, landed in Los Angeles, visited Yosemite in the 1930s, ended up in San Francisco with people, and then took the train back across country. This is a real adventure for anyone, and for a single woman in the 30s, this was a real step forward. What I am told is that she eventually landed her dream job. She had aspired to this, to be at the very top of her profession. She got a job with the best store in the country at the time. In the 40s, she was working for Saks Fifth Avenue as a buyer. One of the stories that comes to mind, I was told this story, was a great success for her, but it was a challenge. If you remember your history, World War II was on. She was buying ready-to-wear dresses for young women. They wanted to be attractive because there weren't that many men around. They wanted to be as attractive as possible. Evelyn picked a style of dress and a print of dress. Intuitively, she knew it was going to be a big seller. But she had to go to her bosses and say, we need to order 10,000 of these dresses. That's a lot. That's a lot of investment. And it was a big risk. And they basically said, if this doesn't work, it's your job. And she says, I will make you money. And not only will we sell these 10,000 dresses, but you also need to put out the money for a full-page ad in the New York Times. And they said, if this doesn't work, big trouble for you. What happened with that dress, that ad came out, it was called For the Boys. They sold those 10,000 dresses, they had to order 40,000 more. They put them in all the stores around the country. All the competitors had to go out and get a style of dress similar to that because they didn't want to be left behind. In 1946, she was enjoying New York. She was enjoying going to the opera, to the ballet, to concerts, to the museums. She loved all of that. And she took up golf and went upstate New York in 1946 and met this man named Ben. They got married the next year in 1947. She stopped working at Saks Fifth Avenue when children started to happen and they went into a business that didn't do real well. It failed. But in the early 1950s, she got back in as a buyer for the Broadway stores in Southern California. She was their New York buyer. Eventually, they convinced her to move to Los Angeles, which she did. She helped grow that organization from 3 stores to 26 stores. She had a remarkable career in the retail fashion industry. My challenge to all of you is to think about where you want to be, what your purpose is, what your passion is. Be willing to do the work. Use your creativity. Use whatever you have as far as intuition, and really move in those directions. I want you to be as passionate and as successful as Evelyn turned out to be. And if you have any other questions about Evelyn and her life, I'd be happy to tell you about my mom whenever you ask. Thank you.
Thank you, John.